This is music, and this is the 2025 Metal Tag. Welcome to the 2025 Metal Tag. It's curated by the Heavy Metallurgy channel, so go and check them out. They have 20 questions for us. And you know what? Let's just get right to it. Let's get answering those questions. I am not very good at keeping up with forthcoming releases. I'm not even good at keeping up with recently released stuff. So I'm often very late to the party, or I get blindsided by even my favorite bands, and I find out that they've actually put out an album that I didn't even know about. There is one album that is forthcoming. It's coming out later in this month, January 2025. I pre-ordered it, and that's the upcoming Maceration album. Maceration, they are a Danish death metal band featuring Jakob Schultz from the old Invocator days, and Dan Svanö is typically also involved in some capacity. So uh, they put out great stuff. So I do look forward to this one. Now, there seem to be kind of two strategies here. Either people will show the 25th cassette, the 25th vinyl, the 25th CD, I don't know, the 25th 5 track, whatever. Or people treat their collection as one holistic mass and they just pick out the 25th item and show that no matter what the media might be. And I'm going to go for the second option here. So the 25th item in my collection altogether is this classic here, AC/DC Back in Black. Fantastic, perfect album. Not a weak song on here. Great vocals, um, catchy songs, super accessible. I think if you are a younger person looking to get into the mysterious world of rock and metal and guitars and screaming vocals and all that stuff, I think this might be the perfect gateway album. Check it out. There are lots of old bands that I have yet to check out. Some of them I didn't even know about them back in the day. Some of them I knew about them, but I didn't have access to any music by them because we didn't have the internet back then. Some of them I kind of actively avoided, and maybe because I thought I wouldn't like him. And that is the case with this band that I finally gave a chance in 2024. Winger. Always avoided them because thought they looked kind of silly and I thought it would be cheesy. I picked this one up in 2024, though, in the Mephisto record shop here in Copenhagen. It was super cheap. It's been sitting in the shop since they opened, I think. So I decided I'm going to pick it up. I'll listen to it. Probably won't like it. Uh, and that's what I did. And I loved it upon first listen. Is it cheesy? Yes. But the musicianship is fantastic. The vocals are fantastic. The songs are very catchy because there's this kind of glam metal pop sensibility to it. So I will definitely check out more Winger in the future. And it's because of stuff like this that I do like a lot of glam metal because I get these positive surprises pretty much all the time. It's a mix. For me, it's going out into the wild, brick and mortar shops and flipping through their inventories and picking up some cool stuff. Some of my favorite local record stores in Copenhagen are Mephisto and Soundstation, Mint Records, all the Accord shops. Um, there's some others that I haven't frequented that often, but I like them and I would like to, frequent them more often, like Amager Records on the island of Amager here in Copenhagen, Sex Beat Records, Beat Pop Records. And there are also some local record stores in other cities that I like. I paid a visit for the first time ever to Vinyl Freak in Roskilde this summer. In Odense, and Vejle, because they have a shop in Vejle too. I like to, visit Moby Disc whenever I can. There's another record store in Odense called Record Pusher that I've been to a couple of times. Um, in Aarhus, I've visited Reverb Vinyl or Reverb Records. I can't remember, but that's a pretty cool shop. There's another one in Aarhus that I haven't visited that I would like to called Blacklight Records. Up in Aalborg, I've been to Lesehesten, I think once. So yeah, I like going out into, brick and mortar shops, but I also buy online. I like buying through Discogs because I can actually buy from private sellers through Discogs, but also other local record shops around the world because a lot of them have shops in Discogs as well. And I also like buying from, directly from record shops online here in Denmark. There's one called Vinylpladen, also in Aarhus, that I buy from quite frequently. And I've also bought from Moby Disc's online shop, and I've even bought from some local online shops here in Copenhagen, just with the local pickup option. Um, I like that too. And I do buy from some larger like mega stores like iMusic, for example, CD Japan over in Japan, of course. I also like buying from like typically smaller labels directly, like Dying Victims Productions and Jawbreaker Records and Cosmic Key Productions, Pure Steel, Hammerheart Records, and so on and so forth. I'm gonna go with this one here, Live by the Sword, Exploring Soldiers Rise. This one is very hard to pigeonhole. It's kind of traditional heavy metal, except it's not quite traditional heavy metal. It's kind of hard rock, except it's not quite hard rock. It's kind of doom metal, except it's not quite doom metal because it has those doom vibes, but it's not slow enough to be doom metal. There's some 70s hard rock, but it's not quite 70s hard rock. It's a little bit punky, but it's not quite punk. Um, the vocals are a kind of an interesting mix of I don't know. Sounds like a pirate trying to sing country western. The singer has this voice quality that I somehow associate with your typical like Hollywood movie pirate, and it's actually pretty cool. I quite like it. But instead of using this pseudo Irish accent, um, he has this kind of Southern American English, like so he says rice instead of rice and things like that. So even that is kind of confusing. So it's kind of metal, but it kind of isn't metal. It's really cool. I really enjoy listening to it because the songs are good. You even have like is it there's a grunge, but it's not quite grunge. A bit of new wave, but not quite new wave. So I think you get the point. This isn't a Enigma, but it's cool. Now, this is not an album that I used to hate, but it's an artist and really like a genre that I wasn't impressed with, and we're talking the guitar shredder. Of course, I was always impressed with the ability to play the guitar, at that level of skill, but quite often, like shredding for the sake of shredding didn't really do it for me. So one artist in particular that I didn't like because of that is Mr. Malmsteen. But I think that was last year too. Jacob sent me this in a VCLT, and I figured, you know what? Okay, I appreciate that. I'll check it out. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was great. And then I found this one here, super cheap in the Accord outlet shop. Picked it up, loved it. So it's not an album I used to hate, but it's an artist that I used to avoid. But, I actually quite like it. So there you go. Yeah, because I never blind buy anything. I think actually most of my purchases, at least half of them, they're blind buys. Because that's how we did it back in the day, and I always liked it, taking the chance, buying something I had no idea about, I had never heard before, and just seeing what I think of it. And this one here is kind of a combination of this question and the question about an older band that I only checked out recently. So I picked this one up here in After by Immolation. Uh, hadn't I had one Immolation record that I bought very recently, but that's all I had heard from them. And I saw this one. It was in the Mephisto shop too. Uh, decided to pick it up because I thought I would like it, and I did. This is excellent stuff. It is kind of progressive. I think death metal. I would not call it technical though, but it is kind of unusual, and it's a really interesting listen. So, yeah, that's a blind buy, one out of many. So I don't have that many albums where I have multiple copies in the same format. I do have some, but there's typically some kind of reason, like some interesting, like small detail, and for the most part, that doesn't mean a whole lot to me. So it's in really special cases, and that's the case of this one. And we're talking Vain, No Respect. I have two copies on cassette tape. One of them I bought. Um, That's this one here. And one of them I was given in a VCLT by the god that is Metal Down Under. That's this one here. And they are slightly different from one another. As you can see here, the spine looks different. The front doesn't really look different. The back of the J card they look a little bit different. And then the cassette shells themselves are very different. Um, And this is glam metal, but it's kind of different from a lot of other glam metal. So it's actually very interesting in that respect. So there you go. Yeah, so I don't really operate with the concept of the grail because there's some things in the metaphor itself that don't quite line up, I think. There's a grail, of course, it's the holy grail metaphor. But in that metaphor, of course, you send people out on quests and you go out on quests actively looking for those things. And I do have a lot of items I would really like to have, but I don't normally go out of my way on quests you know, to pick them up or find them. So this is an item I really, really wanted for a while. Uh, it's hard to come by at affordable prices in Europe and even in Japan, where it's the Love Bites EP. Very expensive normally. I was lucky enough to find using the proxy option in CD Japan to actually find a copy that was, I think, 50%, if not more than 50% less expensive than what these normally are. So, and even with the import taxes and stuff that, are imposed when you buy from Japan and outside of the EU, it came in cheaper than what a copy would normally cost. This is a fantastic power metal band, in my opinion. A lot of their fans get mad when you call them power metal, but to me, it sounds like power metal. And they're all ladies, and they're just awesome musicians. And I had lost interest in power metal altogether because it had become watered down to the point that it was kind of a parody of itself. But these ladies here saved power metal for me, and I'm stoked that I actually managed to pick a copy of this up, um, because it's not a grail, but it's the closest thing to a grail in my world. So there you go. We're still in grail world, and again, still with my reservations. I don't think this is going to be a surprise at all. I would really like to have a vinyl copy of Death Symbolic. Now, this copy here itself is actually cool because it is like an pressing from back in the day. So I think that is cool on CD. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. My favorite death metal album for sure. And this is the album that finally got me into death metal. I would love to have a vinyl copy of this. An OG would be absolutely insanely cool, but one of those reissues that came out on white vinyl some years ago, that would be pretty cool too. Now, the question is called Plea to the VCLT Gods, but I would never ask anyone to pick this one up for me because they're expensive. I don't want people to, you know, pay a lot of money just to make me get one on vinyl. I'll find one at some point, probably at a price that I find to be acceptable, or maybe we're lucky and it will be reissued on vinyl. Who knows? But yeah, this is an album I would really love to have on vinyl. I have it on cassette tape too and on CD, so I do have it and I can listen to it. It would be cool to have it on vinyl. Into the Pandemonium and to Megatherion. I was a huge fan of Celtic Frost, in particular, Vanity Nemesis, and yeah, Cold Lake. I like Cold Lake. So I picked these ones up back in the day, and I just couldn't wrap my head around them because these are quite avant-garde, but they're also, kind of deep beat inspired and stuff. They're kind of weird, so they didn't click with me back then. So I had a friend in high school who was the drummer in a black metal band, and he had heard about Celtic Frost and he had never heard them. So I told him I have these Celtic Frost ones. I don't really listen to him, and he said, "Wow, you want to make a trade?" So I gave him these two, and in return he gave me I think some Metallica and Sacred Reich stuff. Uh, then further down the line, I had gotten into avant-garde metal and prog metal and all sorts of things. So I went out and I bought these reissues on CD. So they got out of my collection once, and now they're back in my collection. I think it's this more than 15 years ago I picked them up again. I don't know if that counts as a Boomerang album, but there you go. So this is one I've shown recently, um, but I'm going to show it again because I think it counts. And that's this one here. Simple Aggressions, Formulations in Black. This is a cassette tape I picked up recently. This is one of those IRS white J card promos. And the cover artwork really looks like this. And the story is that uh, this is Simple Aggressions. This album is one of those weird 90s kind of post thrash albums where the thrash metal bands got kind of weird and they incorporated like groove metal and funk and alternative rock and hardcore and all sorts of strange things into their style. And I gotta be honest, back in the day, we liked that stuff. At least the crew I would hang out with. And I still like it to this day. A bit of funk in my thrash metal. I'm fine with that. And one of my friends had this one on a CD, and we would sit around and have a blast listening to it. And there's one song on it called Jedi Mind Trick. that we just loved listening to, and then, you know, we moved on with our lives. Time passed by. I forgot what the band was called. I forgot what the release was called. I forgot what the song was called, but I always had in my mind the lines, use the force, Luke, because they sing that in that song. And in 2024, I found this copy online and I decided to pick it up. So yeah, I did reconnect with Simple Aggression Formulations in Black. I don't think I need to go out of my way to find a CD version of it. I'm happy with this one. I think I'm recycling this. I think I mentioned this band in the 2024 Metal Tag too, but this is this one, Bizarre Kult, We Overlived. I think this one came out in 2019 or 2020, maybe 21. I don't remember. Uh, but it's a debut album that I thought was absolutely fantastic. It's progressive black metal in the vein of, but they don't sound at all like him, but in the kind of in the vein of Enslaved. And this is just freaking awesome. It's fantastic. I love this one so much that when I learned that they had a new album out called Den Tapte Kriegen, I picked it up immediately on cassette tape. This is excellent stuff. This is the kind of black metal I absolutely adore. So there you go. A fantastic debut album. I get inspired by a lot of vinyl community channels to check stuff out and buy stuff. And this one here is an album that I learned about from the one and only Bev from the Clarko Vision channel. And she showed it in a video and described it. And the connection is so close that I actually bought it from her. Tradia Trade Winds. This was the one she showed and didn't really click with her, but I thought it sounded really interesting, her description of it. So uh, she decided to sell it, and I decided to buy the very copy that she showed from her. It's very melodic hard rock, AOR oriented, leaning into like pop rock in places, but in other places you have some heavy metal elements, and I quite like it for what it is. Okay, so I like heavy metal and hard rock, and there are lots of covers that are awesome, in that universe. But there are also lots of covers that are really bad, for the most part, so bad they're good. So that's something. So I had a lot to pick from, and I was considering maybe, showing an album with a boring band picture on it. But I have shown this one before, but I remember this one, Over the Top by Cozy Powell. This is a cover. The idea is there, but the idea itself is crazy enough. Like it's called Over the Top, and you got Cozy Powell on a dirt bike jumping over his drum kit. Yeah, and I get that over the top, but there there are other ways you could do it. I mean, you could go crazy and have him jump over Mount Everest like a mountaintop. I think that would be cooler. Um, but apart from the idea being kind of wacky, I mean, look at the size of his head. They just cropped, I think, his head on some, dirt bike rider, and they didn't adjust the size of his head, so it's massive, and it makes his arms look super tiny, and he's got this like derpy depression expression on his face. I don't know if he has a depression. I hope not, or had. He's passed away sadly in a terrible traffic accident. But he has this derpy expression on his face that just doesn't look like someone who's in the middle of jumping over a drum kit on a dirt bike. Uh, there's also some weird, I think, airbrushing or something going um, on the dirt bike. So, yeah, it's a bad, but so bad it's good piece of cover artwork here. The music is actually pretty damn good. I like it. So that's obviously why I picked this. So there you go. This one here, over the top, Posey Powell, strange cover artwork. From bad cover artwork to good cover artwork. And yeah, again, there's a lot of stuff to pick here. There are lots of super talented and skilled artists working on, cover artwork and stuff. I considered showing some Derek Riggs on Maiden stuff, but I figured that would be too easy. I also considered showing some Ed Repka stuff, but instead of some of his more legendary albums, I figured it would be fun to show some of the less known, maybe more questionable pieces of cover artwork by him. Although I like him, like this one here, for example, or this one here. But I figured I would kind of go back to an artist that I absolutely adored back in the late 80s, early 90s, who did a lot of artwork for a lot of the German power metal and heavy metal bands, and he's done work outside of that genre as well. And back then, I just loved sitting around looking at, back then it was mostly the CD covers that he made. And we're talking Andreas Marschall, who did a lot of work for example, Running Wild. And I think this might be my favorite artwork by him. A lot of details here. That you can look at while looking at the album. I also really like his work on Blind Guardian's output, like this one here, um, or this one here, which kind of even tells a story, which I think is really really cool. So yeah, Andreas Marshall. I also found out, I think, that he did the cover artwork for this Immolation album. I'm not sure, but I think he did this. So pretty cool too. So there you go. Yeah, an album I would really like to see reissued on vinyl. It's a pretty recent release, but I would love to have it on vinyl. And I think I've mentioned that before. That's this one here by Bandmade. This is Unseen World, my favorite Bandmade album. It's their heaviest album, I think, but also it has some of their most interesting and most complex songs, and also some of their more heartfelt and s- soft songs. Their softest album to me is Conqueror, but this is my favorite Bandmate album, and they have reissued a lot of their classic albums, and I think this is a classic. So please reissue this on vinyl. I would love to have it on vinyl, and I would actually also like to see them reissue. I don't know why they haven't done it. I think it's because they have kind of distanced themselves from it and the fans too. But I would love to see uh, Made in Japan, their debut mini album, which is very weird and different from anything else they put out. I'd love to see that reissued on vinyl, but it would have to be with this original cover artwork because it's just more interesting than the reissue. They did reissue it on CD, um, but that's just like white, plain white digi sleeve uh, gatefold, to be sure. But I'd love to see this one reissued as well on vinyl. So there you go, some Bandmade stuff. Well, how about some new wave pop rock like Adam and the Ants? I like that. I don't listen to it that often, but I like it. And I actually absolutely love, I guess it was their biggest hit, Stand and Deliver. Man, I don't know. I know Pantera, the reformed. I don't know Pantera. I think they're playing a show here in Copenhagen in January, but I probably won't be able to attend that. Iron Maiden, I know they're playing a gig here in Copenhagen, but that's already been sold out. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I would like to see Iron Maiden live. I'd love to see Blaze Bailey live, but he never plays in Denmark. I would love to see Love Bites. They played here last year at a festival, but the ticket prices were just unacceptable. And apart from Love Bites and two other bands, the whole program was just trash, in my opinion. So yeah, Bandmate would love to see them live. Um, it would be really maybe kind of like a fantasy thing here. Aldius, fronted by Sin Isomer. Please, please do that. Uh, that would be cool to watch. Maximum the Hormone, a lot of those Japanese bands. It would be cool to see them live on their home turf. But yeah, I don't know, man. There are lots of bands I would like to see live this year, but I just I I don't want to hope for anything because I probably won't be able to go and see a lot of stuff live. Sadly, that's normally the case. Last year, 2024, I saw Judas Priest live, and that was actually the first live show I went to in like 7 years or something. Okay, so I actually don't really remember what channels I discovered in 2024, so I'm going to go with the option of just shouting out two channels I enjoy. And this is two channels that they're both Danish channels and they're both Danish language channels. And but what I like about them is that the channels are run by two different individuals, obviously, who live on the peninsula of Jutland, and they do their videos in the accent of their local dialects, which I really like. One of them is called Mr. Vinyl, Mr. Chili is what it's called. Mr. Vinyl, Mr. Chili in Danish. And yeah, so he does a lot of videos where he tries out different types of strong chili and reviews them. But what I like about his channel is he also does a lot of like haul unboxing videos. He doesn't post videos all the time, so a couple of times per year. But he does these massive unboxing videos, typically where he shows massive hauls that he has bought from Mephisto here in Copenhagen. Has had it shipped to, I think he's from Vendsyssel, part in Jutland. And it's like 10 kilo boxes sometimes, and he just seems like a fun guy, lots of jokes, and he always says that his videos are unprofessionally made, so it's like a fun, in the good way, kind of a fun dumpster fire of stuff. And I always learn about new bands and stuff from him. And again, I love that he does his videos in the accent of the local Vendsyssel dialect. And the other channel is called Skovsen 444 or Skovsen 444. Uh, Kind of a similar style of channel. This is the drummer from the thrash metal band Killing, I think, and he lives, I think, in Ebeltoft in Jutland as well. And he also does occasional videos, and he also does massive unboxing videos from Mephisto as well in the accent of the local dialect. And it's also kind of similar, that kind of fun, like chaotic dumpster fire style, which I like. So yeah, those two channels, they're Danish language. I don't know if they subtitle their channels, but if you speak Danish, maybe you want to check them out. I like them. I think they're good fun. So Mr. Vinyl, Mr. Chili, and Skovsen 444. I think I also want to just go back and shout out some of the channels that supported my channel in the very, very early days. Um, Clargo Vision, I already mentioned her channel, but I think she was the first one to ever shout out my channel. BVD Aussie Metalhead, um, the Death Doom Metalhead, Metal Marty Mac, and Wandering Souls web scene. There are others, of course, that supported my channel, but those were some of the first ones. And I also want to give a special shout out to Jacob, who was very supportive of my channel in the early days and with his old channel. He has a new channel now, Randerus, and Randaro's music world. And also, I also want to just shout out Christian Osorio and Tainted Lord 87? 80, 87, I think. I'm sorry, I can't remember the number now. But Tainted Lord 87, because they are very active in commenting on all these vinyl community channels, and they're very, very supportive in that way too. So there you go. More than two shout outs. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's life. So there you go. That was my response to the 2025 metal tag. It's good fun. Feel free to jump in, make your own metal tag video. Thanks for watching.